Hey everyone, this is my run on Boss Rush number 6 in DFFOO Global, and this is going to be a two-party synergy run. Starting off with party 1, I have Auron with his newly released LD, and I pair him off with Beatrix and Ace, both of which also has very good off-turn damage in their kit. For this boss rush, on the first wave, you want to form a party that ideally has synergy such as Auron or Garnet, but primarily focusing on off-turn damage. And this off-turn damage can either come in the form of counter type characters such as Auron, Beatrix, Gladio, or Galuf, or characters who specialize in trap damage such as Leon or Ace, for example. The key reason behind this is that in the level 200 plus, each of your parties can only have a maximum of 30 actions instead of the usual 50. And on wave 1, when the bosses hit 79%, they will get a permanent white aura that allows them to turn warp after every single character action that you take. And this even includes call abilities and additional abilities. Therefore, by prioritizing off-turn damage in the form of counters and traps, the bosses will essentially be triggering it every single turn that you take, since they will immediately warp their turns. This also means that ideally you want to have counter tanks to keep your party safe, which is why Auron as the featured unit is probably the best unit to bring here. But other counter tanks such as Gladio should work pretty effectively as well. So I paired Auron with Beatrix because they go together very well. Auron will cover tank the entire party, and after every boss action, his counter and Beatrix counter will trigger together, so I get 2 counter attacks for every boss attack that happens. For the third party member, there are quite a lot of choices here obviously. I did have another run using Core as a third, but then that will leave my first party without any burst weapon. So I took him out and I subbed in Ace instead, so that I could at least capitalize Ace with his BT mode on wave 1. So when the bosses hit 79% here, they will get the white aura that will then provide them with a instant turn every time you take a character action. On top of that, at certain intervals starting from 79%, they will also use the Frost Moon attack that will inflict a 1-turn unframed debuff on your party that carries a 50% attack down debuff, as well as a debuff that will prevent any Brave Battery or Brave Regen effect. So in other words, if you have that debuff up, you can only gain bravery by doing brave attacks. So that debuff is designed to make your run on wave 1 slightly more difficult, because if you are relying on counter attacks or trap damage, obviously a large component of that is tied to actual brave battery effects or brave regen effects. To prevent that debuff, you have 2 options. You can either bring along a character that provides debuff immunity, but the challenge with that is that the key character there, I guess, is Afmao, but she really isn't very good for boss rush because she takes too many consecutive turns. Another way is to load up your party with 6 frame buffs, so that way there isn't any more buff slots that the boss can use to inflict your party. Here I did that by using a Hope Call that provides the party with Protect and Shell. The turn warping mechanic on wave 1 will not work when you're inside summon or burst mode. So if you do need some room to reapply buffs or heal yourself, you can pop your summon mode here. However, I recommend to save summon mode for wave 2 instead of using it in wave 1. The idea is that in wave 1, you actually want the boss to get as many turns as possible, because each time the boss takes a turn, they trigger all your traps and counter damage, and this cuts down the amount of turns you would need to use to complete wave 1, and then you can carry those turns forward to wave 2 instead. Lastly, I guess while this run is a 2-party synergy run, you can get all the rewards by using 3 parties. So a good yardstick to measure your progress is if you can have 1 party per wave. That should allow you to comfortably complete the boss rush and collect all rewards. Personally, I think the most difficult wave is actually wave 2. And that's why if your first party can go all the way to wave 2 and deplete some of the HP there, you can then just dedicate your second party to finishing off wave 2. And wave 3 is actually easier to kill off if you have the right party. Before finishing off the first wave, you do want to have a quick check on your ability users. If you specialize in traps, for example, you want to save at least 1 or 2 trap inflicting skills for the second wave so that you can still at least do some amount of damage in wave 2 before your first party has to tag out. Similar with your counter abilities as well, you want to try to save some so that you can get in some counter damage at the start of wave 2 before you have to pop your summon. Okay, so coming to wave 2, it is pretty straightforward with your first party as long as you have some leftover abilities that provide party protection or cover, as well as being able to inflict any traps if you have a trap related character in your party. At the start here, I used some number of turns to inflict all my remaining call abilities to debuff the steam counts. Counter Firaga is only a single target brave attack on the character that did the melee or ranged physical attack on the boss, but it also carries the ability to remove all buffs on the character that did the attack on the boss. And for a counter-related characters such as Gladio or Auron, you can imagine having all their buffs removed can be quite crippling to the character. The counter Firaga, however, will not trigger during summon mode, which is why you want to save summon mode for when the bosses are close to 49% HP instead. The Steam counts on Wave 2 are also immune to launch, so if you have characters who specialize in launch, it is better that you save them for the party that will take on Wave 3, because Wave 1 features turn warping mechanics and Wave 2 is immune to launch, which both really isn't ideal for launch characters at all. And for a character like Reigns, I think he's best used for the party that tackles Wave 3. At 79%, the Lufenia orb will appear on the Steam counts, and the orb here has a similar conditional to Garnet's Lufenia Plus stage, the one with the Ant Lion, where it will increase by 1 each time you do a Thunder or Water Weakness Elemental damage. This is where Beatrix is quite useful because all her attacks are Thunder Elemental, so Beatrix alone can at least maintain the Lufenia orb during her turn. She also inflicts the Thunder Imperil, so if you have a way to Thunder Enchant your party, everyone will be able to do a +1 on their turn when they attack the bosses. Of course, if you have Garnet, even just as a call ability, the orb will pose no issues at all, as you'll be hitting the bosses for +2 every single turn. That being said, if your first party can last all the way to this point on Wave 2 and you have Summon mode, you don't really have to worry about the orb because the orb will also disappear at 29%, which means that with Summon mode or BT mode, you can comfortably damage raise the orb, as with what I'm doing with this party here. Right here at 49%, the Steam counts get their final stat boost, and they will also start countering melee or range physical attack. This is where, if you have those characters in your party, you want to pop your summon before they get their turn. The timing is quite nice in this circumstance because I also hit the 1 turn count remaining on the boss rush, so right here is where I really have to pop summon anyway. After summon mode, if you did do a melee or ranged physical attack inside summon, you get hit by counter Firaga, as is what happened right here. So my Auron got all his buffs cleansed or dispelled by the bosses, but that doesn't matter because I'm about to end my first party anyway. So I'm just finishing up with one final move from Ace right here. So here on my second party, I have a combination of Seed Rains for the launch. The twins with their green BT, I have managed to snag their BT when I was pulling for Auron's LD, and I round off the party with Bartz. Depending on how far you get to wave 2, you do want to think about your second or third party members, because again here the bosses on wave 2 will counter melee or range attacks. So here for example, when I use Bartz, his attacks will trigger the counter and he'll get all his buffs cleansed. However, I decide to bring him in anyway because the bosses are low enough. Alternatively, if you don't really mind going for 3 parties, you can just have a party that specializes in magic damage, because that will not trigger counter Firaga. And you can just use the second party to finish off wave 2 and maybe put a dent in wave 3 before you bring in your third party. However, given that my first party brought me quite far, I wanted to just do a 2-party run instead for this boss rush, which is where this combination comes in. So because the boss on wave 2 is pretty low, I decide to finish them off, mainly capitalizing on Twins PT mode, so that I don't have to struggle with the other 2 party members. Reigns will not do well on wave 2 because they are immune to launch, so his damage is really neutered. And each time Bartz attacks, he'll get all his buffs dispelled by the bosses, so he also isn't ideal at all. But with Twins here, I can very comfortably finish the boss within one burst mode. And this will then allow me to go to wave 3 with this party, which I feel is very good together to handle the boss and the minions on wave 3. Wave 3 I think is the most straightforward. If you've reached this far on your second party and you don't mind switching to a third party, you can just switch out here and bring in a third party, because it shouldn't take too much to bring the boss and the ESP dolls down. You can also aim for a no boss turn to completely finish up this fight as well. So with this setup here, all I'm trying to do is to complete my ramp up before I go into summon mode and do my Seed Rains launches, especially with Bartz, where all his buffs were dispelled on wave 2 previously by the steam counts. So before I can pop summon, I try to use the turns here to ramp up Bartz and get some of his buffs up as well. You can buy yourself the turns to do that by using Seed Rains turn manipulation, and ideally you want to try to do as many launches as you can, especially on the off targets when Seed Rains inflict the launch status on all 3 enemies, so that you can quickly charge up the summon meter. So by doing launches on the mini dolls here, you're also quickly charging up your summon meter, and this way you can actually prevent the bosses from getting turns. When you enter summon mode, you will be doing quite a lot of damage to the boss, especially if you have a powerhouse like Seed Rains. Okay, so target A was about to get a turn, so I decided to just pop my summon here to deny the enemies from getting a turn. The good thing about wave 3 is that all the enemies are weak to the wind element naturally, So if you have a wind enchanter like Bartz, or if you use Pandemonium as your summon, you'll be doing heavy damage during summon mode. In terms of priority, you want to focus down the boss first before the minions. That's because when one minion dies, the boss will get a modest stat boost, I think somewhere along the lines of 30% or so. But when both minions die, the boss will get a humongous stat boost. I can't remember the actual numbers, but I think it's more than 100%, which makes the boss extremely tanky and difficult to finish off. That's why you want to try to aim down the boss first. If you have characters specializing in AoE damage like the twins, it shouldn't be too difficult. You can just have range damage down the boss a little bit more than the minions, and then start AoEing down all 3 enemies at once. So you can see right here, by stacking launchers you see range. The boss is already almost dead by the end of the summon, and I've managed to delay all 3 enemies because of seed rains as well. So at this point, because the boss is low, I'm quite confident that the AoE from the twins will kill off the boss, so I'm just switching targets to the ESP dolls now to whittle down their health. So just a little bit about the mechanics on wave 3 before the fight ends. On wave 3, the most dangerous thing about the fight is the boss's recast ability, which hurts a lot. It's a double AoE, Brave and HP dump. And the boss also starts the fight 1 turn away from the recast ability. So if you can't do a no boss turn such as this, you do want to bring some form of protection to prevent the damage from the recast ability, such as a 9 or Warrior of Light Call, for example. Other than that, the boss also can pull the mini dolls to act right after it gets a turn. And the mini dolls, as you can see, has 1 red aura and 1 green aura around them. The green mini doll features more supportive utility attacks, and the red mini dolls feature more attack damaging type moves in its arsenal. Alright, that's it for this run. Hope this video has been helpful, and as always, if you enjoyed the content, do leave a like, comment or subscribe. It really helps a lot. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next Lufenia fight. Bye!